Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the most September VISTA monthly meeting and training. We are very grateful once again to have you all join us. We'll be recording this session for all those who couldn't, and we will send it out afterwards along with a copy of this slide deck. So without further ado, we will move into some announcements. There are a couple great upcoming events in the area, both in Silver Spring, over in Towson, as well as sort of central Maryland, Howard County, and in Baltimore. Some next week, some this very weekend. Festival of India, looks like, as well as the Celebrating African American in the Arts event in Towson is also this weekend. Oh, all three of these are. Sorry about that. This Harvest Moon Festival as well in Silver Spring. So lots going on this weekend. Look out for more events coming soon in our October Vista newsletter, which is being put together currently. And if you have any events or any events that your organization, your site is putting on, feel free to share those with us as well. We'd be happy to include that. Some more large scale events that we would like to highlight that are coming up in October. One of our great partners here in Baltimore, but also they have a site in DC, is Mentor. And a couple Vistas in our cohort right now are assigned to Mentor as well. So we love to share their stuff that's going on. There is a roundtable happening in person, a collaboration for impact that will be at our office, which is also Mentor's office over at Union Mill. And that is October 2nd. And then a more long-term event, there's only 5 weeks from this big event, which is really can go on all month in different forms, but there's a specific day, and we'll send you more info. Lights On After School, which is a national effort for promotion of after-school programs, and lots of events are put on, and there's also some scholarship opportunities and funding available to host an event. So look out for what MOST is going to be doing during that, and whether you're having an event, let us know, and we would love to attend or highlight that as well. Last, we're going to be talking about this a couple of times. The Maryland United for Youth Conference is a large-scale event, training, workshop, networking opportunity. It will be 2 days this year, and that's happening in November. We're going to be looking for volunteer opportunities from either VISTA members or others in the community, and we'll be offering free attendance for the whole day for both days if you do volunteer. So we're going to send out information for you on that. It's usually an event where all of us, the whole VISTA program, gets together and you're able to attend. The mini trainings we'll have at least 20 training sessions that you could attend. The volunteer opportunities are not the hugest commitment, so you would not spend most of the time volunteering. It would maybe be one shift, one workshop, and then you get to attend the rest free of charge, as well as we are going to look into a hotel room block for anyone who would want to stay overnight. That will be happening in Baltimore City, downtown, at the Royal Sonesta Harbor Court, which is a hotel right in the Inner Harbor. And we're really looking forward to it. Should be about 300 attendees, give or take. More on all those events soon, and certainly we will be sending out more info in emails and newsletters. Some cohort announcements here relevant specifically to you all. First, we'd like to welcome our newest Vistas, Almeida, who's our Vista leader, and Imani, who's working with the Baltimore Rites of Passage initiative with Maryland Mentor here in Baltimore. They've both relocated, so give them a big welcome. And if you all want to, do an in-person thing or get to meet each other, we should. Also, there has been an email sent out that you should all check your personal emails to be able to log into our payroll system now. You won't need to submit timesheets that way. We're still going to do the old timesheet manner, but you'll be able to pull and print your pay stubs on your own. So look out for an email. It should have been from Kathy and it should be from the Fund for Educational Excellence. It should have gone to your personal, so check junk, everything like that. And very good. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. Yes. Sorry, I was just checking that message there. Yeah, and we'd like for everyone to give a brief go around and introduction and talk about their project in the next slide. So we'd love to hear a little bit of that from each of you that are here today. There are also, so yeah, if you have questions about the logins for ADP, then reach out to me. I'm happy to help with that. If you didn't receive the email, let me know and I can forward you a copy of it. And you'll be able to get I think you'll be able to get your W-2s for tax season, as well as check pay stubs and download them anytime you want. There's a new living allowance rate. This is a pretty big announcement. So there's an increase in pay rates for Maryland, for DC, for most of the counties in the country. And you should see a different living allowance deposit starting today. You did start halfway. This new pay rate started halfway through our pay period. So everyone received 1 week of the old pay rate combined with 1 week of the new pay rate. And then 2 weeks from now, you're going to receive both weeks of the new pay rate. So a little bit more even than what you saw today. But feel free to check that. If you have any questions, again, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to help with that. And once you set up your ADP, you can pull your own pay stub. But until then, I can also request those and send them to you. Just a couple more announcements here. So the monthly reports for September are due. It is the third Friday of the month, and we would really appreciate if you sent those to us with everything updated, including performance metrics on your trackers. And lastly, I did already mention this in the previous slide, so I jumped ahead, but there are opportunities for you all to join us for the Maryland United for Youth Conference, which is Most and Mentors semi-annual conference here in Baltimore. And we would love to have you join us. And we'll have a code for you to register and more info on staying overnight in a hotel soon. Okay, so now I'm going to pass it over to Almeda, who has prepared this wonderful presentation and the workshop ahead on data and collection and reporting. Thank you, Almeda.
You're welcome. Hello, everyone. It's nice to meet all of you. I'm Almeda, the new VISTA leader. Sorry if you can hear any background noise. They're doing some major construction on the street outside of my house this week. So that's always fun. But that's the jackhammering noise if you can hear it, which I hope you can. But I think I will also start mentioning one other. Oh, you can't. Good. Okay. I'll just mention one other event that will hopefully be in the October newsletter. I am working on planning an in-person volunteering event for either October 11th or October 25th. The date isn't fully set yet, but that would be at the Sixth Branch Community Farm. Yeah, and it'd be great if anybody who's interested in volunteering as a group for a day at a local project would come to that too. So keep an eye out in the newsletter for that. Yeah, and then just to ask for some updates from all of you, thorns and roses of service. So just one thing that's going well and maybe one thing that has been a challenge you've been experiencing. Any other upcoming events any of you have at your service sites? And then a quick icebreaker question. What is one food you've always wanted to try? I will start. My food I've always wanted to try is that fruit that everybody says tastes like ice cream that I don't remember the name of right now, but I'm very curious to see if it tastes like ice cream for myself. And then I will popcorn over to Jay, if you'd like to start.
Sure. Hey y'all, I'm Jay. Thorns and roses. So a thorn one would probably be adjusting to the amount of communication, I guess, that I do. I send out a lot of emails, a lot of texts, a lot of phone calls every single day. Um, it's forced me to get rid of my fear of public speaking very quickly, which I guess is great because now I can just speak freely in a meeting like this without feeling nervous. But before it's just new. It's different. But roses would definitely be my bosses. My supervisors have been excellent. Sadiq and David, big shout out to them because they have managed to break down the process in a way that makes a lot of sense to me. They're very good teachers, they're very patient. Um, so I understand the work that I'm doing. Um, so that's been good. And I'm excited because we have some stuff coming up. Oh wait, I can talk about it right now, upcoming events. Okay, cool. So on the 5th, we have a closing pre-write ceremony for the boys in our programs. So basically, it's like a little banquet that we're doing where we're serving breakfast brunch items and the boys get to demonstrate for the community what they've been learning. They get to they all had to come up with business plans that they get to present. Um so I'm just excited to see what the kids came up with for that. And it's my first in-person event, so I'm excited to go. And one food that I've always wanted to try. I have a hard time with that question because I have a very diverse diet. My parents have been introducing us to new foods my entire life. So I don't know what I haven't tried yet. Um, as far as normal foods anyway. Um, maybe dragon fruit. I've had the yellow ones, but not like the green and pink ones. So maybe that. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's cool. My dad actually just started growing some dragon fruit, so that's interesting. How about Astrid? You'd like to go next?
Okay, hi. So for my service right now, I'm working at Centro Sol, and we work mostly with Latinx youth. And right now, I think the hardest part for my service is planning the program we will have in October, which is the mentoring program for the youth. I think it's hard, like, to keep with the schedule and all the events that we have to cover. And I think the good side of it is that I'm learning how to manage different things at the same time and time management. I think that's really helpful for me. And I don't think we have any new events coming up for this month. Um, but I do know that uh, I'm not quite sure of the date, but in November we have an event that's for the community. I forgot the name of it, but I know we have that in November. And for the food, I think I want to try Philippine food. I have never tried that before. And I think that's it for me.
Okay. Uh, does anybody want to volunteer to go next? Should I keep calling on people?
I'll go ahead and go. My name is Rebecca. I'm serving with Mentor Maryland, DC. Um, I would say like a very small thorn of this week was that it's just been busy with a lot of travel, so I'm a little tired going into the weekend, but that's all good. A rose of the past month, I am nearing the end of my service time, and was approached by a program looking for help finding corporate sponsors, and I was able to say like, oh yes, I know what to do and I can help you, and I was able to pass along a lot of information, and that felt pretty good. Knowing that my knowledge had been built over this year. Um, the big event, I think we have smaller events coming up in the near future, but we are planning a fundraising gala conference for I believe early next year, Maryland for Youth Conference. So that's exciting. And then I think, okay, I fully expect judgment on this, but similarly to Jay, like I think a privilege of my life and the time I've been in, I have gotten to eat a lot of the foods I've wanted to try. And so one of the things, it's like an intrusive thought, but like forbidden meats, like if someone were to offer me horse, I would try it, guys. I'm not sorry. Okay. Yeah. And then I'll go ahead and popcorn over to Bree.
Good morning, everyone. Um, I'm Bree, and I work with Leaders of Tomorrow's Youth Center in Baltimore. Um, I guess some of the thorns that I've had with my placement is there has been a lot of change as far as leadership. So when it comes to communication and roles, things have been shifting almost constantly from like different people and stuff like that. So it can be hard to sort of have a streamlined transition to get certain things done. When it comes to some of the roses, is I was able to implement art competition for our children, and I'm working on leaving that as a legacy that can become annual or semi-annual events that they'll be able to look forward to and hopefully become a staple in the community later. Some of the events that we have coming up is we are planning a community event for October or December, um, as part of our Love Drive initiative, where we are trying to get donations so we're able to give back to some of our students and people in need. We did this last year as well, where we gave out over 100 coats to lower income and in need families and households. So we're planning on doing that again soon, but we're also wanting to combine it with a performance from some of our kids, like in theater, dance, and such. Um, and as far as the food I wanted to try, I do love trying cuisines from like all over the world. And I guess more recently, I've been trying to explore more Korean foods. I can't pronounce half of them, but that's part of the fun. So I don't know specifically when I want to eat. I'll just point at it, I guess.
I can go next. So my name is Rita, and I'm with Mentor MD/DC. And a thorn, I don't think I have experienced any thorns yet because I'm still a little bit new. But roses will be good communication for me and my supervisor, and getting more experience hands-on by actually going in person and actually participating a lot during the meetings and contributing during the team DC team meetings in person. So I think that'll be a rose. An upcoming event will probably be I think we have a professional development day in October. So that's gonna be my first one. So I'm looking forward to that. Then what's one food I always wanted to try? I think I'm open to any food, honestly. Not really seafood though, because I don't like seafood, but I'm pretty still open to seafood. So yeah, that's all about me.
Okay, I'll take it over. Thorns and roses. So some thorns, I'd say about my service. Oh, I'm with Mentor Maryland DC as the on Suburban Outreach Vista. Um, and thorns, I would say, would be the outreach I have to do. Not in terms of like doing it, obviously, but in terms of like finding people to reach out to and then trying to connect with people over the internet can be really hard. Because a lot of people aren't going to be super responsive to an email that they've from somebody they've never met before. So I try and connect personally as possible in my outreach so that they know that I'm a real human and, I'm a friend and I actually want to make a connection. So I think that would be my biggest thorn in my service is just trying to connect with people over the internet. Um, but in the same breath, I think the roses would also be connecting with people because when you do make those connections, it's really fulfilling and it's really nice. Being able to work alongside Mentor Maryland DC has been really nice because I get to get even more connected with my community and those that are on the Eastern Shore. Um, so that's been really, really nice. And the connections that I have already made have been lovely and great. And more roses would be my team. I love everybody on the team. It's been really refreshing to have to be able to, participate in this year of service with these people, in this org because it's like I said, it's been refreshing, like coming from other jobs and then getting to work in a team like this has been really, really nice to see because it feels like I'm a human first and not just a cog in a machine. Um, so that's also a rose. Upcoming events, Rebecca has already said, and so has Rita also. You guys said some big things, but I do have a mentoring connector info session that's happening in October that I'm going to be uh presenting or whatever. So that should be exciting. Kind of nervous because I don't really do presentations, but it should be fun and easy because it's something I'm passionate about anyway. So that's upcoming for me and for Mentor Maryland DC. Um, one food I've always wanted to try. Wouldn't say that I'm a picky eater. I'm a texture taster though, so if it's anything, what I will say is I would eat virtually anything as long as I don't think the texture would be weird and as long as I don't know what it is. Like Rebecca, you're saying you'd eat horse. I probably would not do that if somebody was like, "Here's some horse meat if you'd like." I'd probably be like, "No, thank you. I'm okay." But if somebody was like, "Here's some chicken," I'd probably eat it. And then I'd probably like it. But in terms of like other foods, like I'm probably never gonna eat octopus unless it's like fried. I don't really like shrimp unless it's popcorn shrimp if it's fried, because then the texture's a little different. Like escargot might be the most delicious thing ever in the world. Not trying it because I know that I would not be able to stomach the texture of it. Um, so the textures I don't like are like slimy and chewy, I guess. Um, so seafood I'm not huge on, but I'm not picky about seafood either, as long as it's not like shrimp or octopus or, something that's moving. If if the texture is altered in any way, like if it's something that I don't like the texture of normally, for example, like mushrooms, if it's like a fried mushroom, probably gonna be okay. But like a raw mushroom or like a mushroom anywhere else, not eating it. I hate them. It just gets in my head, I think. My imagination's very strong. So if the texture's off, I'm thinking I'm eating like something just I should not be eating. So I don't know what I would want to try. Love Korean dishes, so anything of those also. I think Bree said something about Korean dishes. Anything Korean I'd probably try as long as it's not, again, the texture is not off for me. Uh, Not really a picky eater other than texture. So yeah.
All right. Fascinating to hear all the different foods. I would try horse. We had a Kazakh exchange student in my high school, and he was talking about this traditional stew that they have that's made with horse. And yeah, so I was just when I think about horse, I think about that, and I'm like, if they offered me a bowl of that, I would eat it.
I think if it was like, I'd probably eat bugs if they were like fried. Like I know in
Yeah, I
Florida,
don't know if I could do that.
in Florida they sell like salt and vinegar like crickets, and I could probably eat that. But like if it's, I don't know, if it's like a live bug, not eating it because I think that'd get in my head.
I wouldn't eat live bugs. I don't know if I could eat a bug if it looked like a bug. I've
That's
tried cricket flour
Hmm,
one time. They make flour out of crickets. My mom found it
interesting.
online and surprised us because we get each other foods that we find on Amazon for Christmas gifts.
That's
One
funny.
time I surprised my brother with like 6 different flavors of Kit Kats from different countries. It
Oh,
was,
that's cool.
yeah. Um, yeah, that was fun. But she found cricket flour, and that was interesting.
It's very interesting. I've never heard of it.
Um, yeah, I also really like Korean food though. I think the only time I didn't like something from a Korean restaurant was I ordered this cold beef soup. It's like a beef soup and it had ice in it.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I'd like cold soup, period. I feel like that'd be, I think my brain would be confused.
Yes, it was odd. I felt bad because the waitress could tell I wasn't enjoying it. But yeah, that's on me. I just saw it on the menu and was like, oh, I've never heard of that before. Let me get that.
At least you tried.
Yeah, that's the important thing for me. What I don't like is if people say, no, I don't like this thing. I've never tried it, but I don't like this thing. So I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
But anyway, Andrew, is there a food you've always wanted to try?
I also like trying new foods. I would say not really, but I do want some pawpaws, which is the native, but sort of like a banana kind of tasting fruit from the US that's currently in season and pretty hard to find. Sometimes I like to go find stuff in the woods. I found pawpaw in the woods once and, from a tree and picked it, and they were small. And then earlier this month, I found what's known as chicken of the woods, which is an orange shelf-like mushroom that you can find after it rains. And it's really, really tasty. And yeah, you have to certainly be careful. And a lot of people are nervous to eat things out of the woods, but there's stuff that you can forage even around here in this area. Know what you're looking for. So that's all I'll say. I love horses. I couldn't imagine eating a horse. I would cry. I like to ride them when possible. Maybe monkey brains. I think I'd try monkey brains before I'd try horse, to be honest.
Can't relate. I couldn't eat monkey brains.
All right. I've shared enough, I think. Thank you
Okay,
all for letting me share.
you want to start the training then? I can't switch the
Sure,
slide.
yeah, we can move on. I will do the slides whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yeah. Well, on to the probably less exciting part, our data and reporting and presentation. Um, so first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of data during your service and in general, different ways of collecting data and some different ways of presenting that data or reporting on it. So, first, just what is data? We'll get into this a bit more in the how to collect it part, but data is a collection of concrete or continuous values that convey information. And the information we want to convey with that data goes into all of these different areas. it looks like a pie chart, but a lot of these also overlap. Yeah, they're linked, overlapping. If it was a Venn diagram, it would also be a circle. Um, so grant reporting, showing results lead to repeat grant awards or other funds in the future. This is something I have personal experience with from my year as a VISTA. We had a grant for supporting the arts. It was 2 years long, $30,000. And at the end of our 2 years, they actually reached out to our office and said, we want to give you another 2 years of this grant, and we want to increase it to $50,000, not just 30,000. So yeah, if you're really on top of giving them the information that they need, can really benefit you. That was even when we had some workshops supported by that grant. We might have 2 or 3 people in attendance one time. And on the ground, that kind of feels like, oh, we're having really low attendance. They're probably going to be disappointed in this. Yeah, despite that, they reached out to us and said, hey, we want to give you even more money this time. So yeah, it can really pay off. If they really like the storytelling, and you're keeping up with the requirements. They like to have that data, the reporting, as a continuous thing, just to continue having the grant. Social media, you can do social media highlights of your project and the impact that your work is having, raising awareness, publicity, storytelling, recruitment of either volunteers or project partners or individual donations, going on to the raising funds portion. The grant that we received for the arts was actually not something that my supervisor found. They actually found us on social media and reached out to her and said, hey, we want you to apply for this grant because we want to give it to you. Not probably typical for the grants that you apply for or want, but it can happen if you're really yeah, just really posting a lot on social media, and really doing a lot to try and get your name out there. Project sustainability, there's always goal setting in any project. Sustainability documents, what works and what doesn't, and planning for what's next. You want all of the data from previous years, what you're doing, also to maybe estimate what your potential, what you could do in the next year, how much more you could increase services or people being served. And also finding out, if you have a program that you're hoping will have this or that effect, you're measuring it, either it exceeds your expectations or maybe doesn't reach them at all. You can always look at that and say, oh, this was going really well. We should keep doing that. Maybe branch out in this or that way. Or say, this isn't really doing what we hoped, so let's look at something else. Then there's always skill building, collecting data, reporting data. These are both skills for you, things that you can work on, things that you can include on your resume and demonstrate with hard numbers. If you ever see those sample resumes where it says this or that person worked at this company and increased sales by 116%. And I always looked at those and thought, well, how could they possibly know that? And it's by doing this, having the sales records from the previous year, keeping records of the different things that they do while they're working there and the number of sales while they're working there and comparing them, saying, oh, well, this project I implemented had this effect. You can put that in your resume and it looks really good on a resume. So, yeah, and that's also a skill that you can take to your other jobs in the future too. It's not just something you'll do during your time in AmeriCorps and then never do again. Yeah, next slide. So this is a chart of where the data you're collecting during your service year is going. Obviously, there's you over there collecting data. It goes on to Andrew and Most Network, and also your site supervisor. And then Most Network gives all of that to AmeriCorps, who then are also publishing it. And then they use that to give to Congress, who are approving the budget for AmeriCorps. So it's a chain of fundraising, pretty much. We're, reporting to AmeriCorps to say, hey, our project is having this impact. So continue to fund us, please. And then AmeriCorps is saying, cool. And then going to Congress and saying, hey, all of our projects are having this impact. Continue funding us, please.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
And I apologize. I just find this interesting. So not that this necessarily like impacts me at all, but I wonder from our monthly reports and the data we put in when it's finally sent up to like the higher powers that be, is are our exact numbers represented there, or is it more so a collective impact of all of us working together? Like, could they go through a report and find, oh, the VISTA at X, Y, and Z did X, Y, and Z specifically?
Andrew, do you want to speak a bit more about your reporting to America?
Yeah, so when I submit reports to our regional area manager, so that goes to they might report it on a couple of different manners. So we do report your individual projects and your performance measures in that, and it's also everything is tallied up amongst all the projects we're working on. So they could go within it, but I think the further up it goes, the more it becomes all just one big data set. So it would be all of our projects, and then it would be all of the projects in, say, Maryland, and then all the projects in the country as it goes up. And I don't think in Congress they're going to be going down specific
Right.
performance measures. Yeah. So it does get compiled further and further, but the way that we're reporting it, each and every performance measure is able to be viewed by project. Your name isn't on that once it's there. It's just the project name and the site.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll get into a bit more about where AmeriCorps puts out their reported information and all of the different ways that they do that a bit later. Yeah, more towards the end, but it's a good question for sure. Next slide. Okay, first questions slash activity. Probably could have just said questions. What are some things your service site is already collecting data on, and where and how does your server site do their reporting? You can either put it in the chat or unmute.
I think for Mentor Maryland, DC, we collect data after events primarily, which includes like speaking events and community events, but also once we've gotten into more specialized service, there's always going to be surveys sent out afterwards. And I think that's generally where most of our data comes from surveys after things have concluded.
Anybody have anything else? Yeah, that's okay. We're going to talk about surveys pretty much right after this. Actually, that's a pretty common way of collecting data, and also you can get a lot of different data through surveys. So I think we can go to the next section. Collecting data. So a couple different types of data. You might have heard of qualitative and quantitative data before, possibly in science classes. But qualitative data gathers non-numerical data, words, images, sounds, to explore subjective experiences and attitudes, often via observation and interviews. It aims to produce detailed descriptions and uncover new insights about studied phenomenon. And quantitative data collects numerical data and analyzes it using statistical methods. The aim is to produce objective, empirical data that can be measured and expressed numerically. Quantitative research is often used to test hypotheses, identify patterns, and make predictions. So that goes back to, planning for the next year. The stuff that people put in their resumes, and qualitative be more testimonials, individual experiences. You'll find a lot of stories on a lot of different nonprofits websites about individual people they've helped. Both of these are important for reporting. You want to get both types of data. And then I included the link where I got the different definitions. So here are some examples of ways that you might be collecting data during your service year. I've included some different examples and then also some survey questions for each type, just to highlight that you can get both types of data from surveys, even just one survey, by including the right kinds of questions. You might have taken surveys where you were asked these questions before. This is the kind of data they're collecting. Yeah, and you want to do both of it. So qualitative questions might be things like, what was your favorite part of this training? What could we do better in the future? And Likert scales, which are those scales where they have a question or a statement and they ask you to rate how much you agree with this statement. Quantitative survey questions include, how did you hear about us? have you volunteered with us before? Yes, no, and objective questions. Those are both questions that I had added to surveys that well, actually, volunteer sign-up forms. My service site was having people sign up as volunteers for a specific event. They did not have a question about how did you hear about us, even though we were sending out email campaigns, text campaigns. We were using physical flyers posted all over campus on our Facebook, and then also some websites where you list volunteer opportunities that are going on in the area. So I added, how did you hear about us as a question to figure out which methods were most effective. It was emails and physical flyers and Facebook, actually. And then have you volunteered with us before was one that got added later because I did a presentation for some people from the AmeriCorps regional office about what I had been doing during my service year. And I was discussing this volunteer sign up with them because I had included that little graph that was created. And they said that another thing that you could be collecting is information on if these people are repeat volunteers or new volunteers. Should also be a good way of evaluating new methods because our email list is obviously people whose email we had, as opposed to maybe Facebook is getting us more new people who are just happen to find us. Yeah. So other qualitative kinds of data come from individual conversations, interviews, and photos. And other quantitative types of data can be conference registrations and Facebook events. If you create an event on Facebook and you include that option for people to say, yes, I'm going to attend or interested, we've used that to sort of figure out attendance for events that we had that had a lot of people. We had this movie screening at the college, and had like 170 people say they were coming on Facebook. And then the people asked us how many people actually showed up. We used that and also a record of raffle tickets that we handed out to people. Each person got one free raffle ticket. So we also counted those. There's also sign-in sheets. Sign-in sheets are one thing that my service site used a lot of. Pretty much every event had sign-in sheets, grant-funded sign-in sheets, grant-funded event sign-in sheets, sign-in sheets for events funded by a partner site that had a grant. That's another thing. We had other partner sites in the city. One of them, by the end of the year, gave us probably around $19,000 to $20,000 throughout the year, cumulatively. But they were grant funded. So when we had events where they had given us supplies, given us somebody to host the workshop, we had to collect the data from that workshop and give it to them so that they could report it to their grant. And by the end of the year, they had sort of started to not work with one of the people on our team because they kept talking about they're so pushy, they're so strict, it's not that big of a deal. They were asking for things after they repeatedly said, hey, we need this amount of time to get this or that thing approved through the grant. And they just kept not doing it. So not to scare you, but there's basically only benefits to collecting data And not collecting data can also have consequences if you leave your site in maybe a worse place than they had been before because they were that was the partner that gave us like $19,000 throughout the year through their grant. And they basically completely cut off one of the people at our site. They just wouldn't work with them because they would not had a problem with, actually keeping records and returning those records to them. Yeah, it wasn't great. Uh, Door counters was a way we kept attendance at our biggest event of the year. And we lost those. We lost those papers this year, um, at last year's event. So that was also not great because then we had to basically estimate attendance at our event for the end of the year report that my site had to do about that event specifically. And the state office was not happy about that. Yes, and then also this quantitative data is something that's much easier to compare year to year if you have solid numbers. So yeah, make sure you're getting both. That's the point. Next questions. What are some ways you've been collecting data in service? Or are there any examples of quantitative or qualitative data you can think of that were not mentioned here?
Um, I think our ways of collecting data are pretty spot on with these. And so I have another question. Sorry. So I wonder like in regards to estimating, I guess one of the things I really worry about is like a margin of error in the data I'm reporting. Um, for one of my measurements, it's to look at economically disadvantaged youth. That's not necessarily information we do collect, to say yes or no, I am economically disadvantaged, but we decided to then base that measurement off of zip codes so that if they corresponded to a larger set of data that said this zip code is an economically disadvantaged area, then we could kind of like extrapolate that a young person in that area would be economically disadvantaged. That is not necessarily true all the time. And something feels kind of like illegal about kind of reporting based off of your best guess. And I wonder if in situations like that, it is better to then just try and, like you said, estimate, or if there really is something ethically not right about doing something like that.
Well, my response would be if there's a way for you to just say that you've gotten these numbers based off of the zip codes that people live in. Uh, I don't see anything ethically wrong with that. Using zip codes, I mean,
Okay.
from my perspective. I don't know, Andrew.
I guess like in a larger sense, kind of like getting creative with the way you collect data is my like if that is okay. Like
It is okay. There's always a margin of error in statistics, I would say, and you do your best to approximate this data and make it as accurate as possible, and that's okay. It's not illegal.
okay, thanks. All
Yes.
right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it can be a bit harder. Sometimes, I've seen other ways to try to measure that. So zip code is one, certainly. But then you could also do like Title I schools in the area that you're serving or that the participants are coming from. There's
Okay.
a couple other ways, but I think that what you're doing right now is should be okay for the
All right.
purpose
I
of
appreciate
your
that.
reporting. Yeah, and everyone has different considerations to make, and Vista and those who collect data further always sort of are factoring in a margin for error.
Yeah, I mean, we did a bit of that too with the people signed up to attend on Facebook. Uh, we didn't then go through like the list of people who said they were going to attend and cross-reference, ask people at the event, hey, did you sign up on Facebook? What's your name? All that stuff. And we don't really know if everybody who put on Facebook that they were going to attend actually came. But
That's actually really helpful to understand because I was thinking about that when you were saying that. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, we use some like the tickets for the raffle and then photos. We had people greeting people at the door. Uh, we had, how full did the auditorium look? We know how many people it can seat. So we know how many seats there are, how many empty seats, is it maybe half full? So it was a bit of estimation based on all of these different factors, one of them being the Facebook attendance. But if you have, maybe a smaller event, uh, people who you've worked with in the past, who you recognize, you have like 8 people say they're going to attend the event, and then you see all of them at the event. Maybe you also have a sign-in sheet for an event that's has less people like that. They're all in there. Yeah. Okay. Reporting on data. So there's the official reporting, um, exact measurements, not estimates. We talked about that a bit. There is some estimation that happens. It's all right. The more you can, in my view, the more you can disclose about how you're getting your information, the better. Um, just so maybe people find out that you did some estimation. They're not like, well, you said that you like had a head count exactly. Um, we never had anybody come back to us and say, uh, hey, you said this many people were here, but we think this many people were here. So you were lying. That never happened. Um, but yeah, exact measurements as much as possible. And nice graphs are always a plus. Narrative is where the qualitative data comes in. Great stories is what they called it at my site. So that in the monthly report is where we would write either quantifiable change narrative, which would be more of a quantitative data thing, or a great story, an interaction you had with somebody from the population you're serving, or just some really good feedback you had from your supervisor, that sort of thing. And always photos, always more photos, always photos to put on the social media to show people you're doing things. Yeah, that's also part of the impact you're having. And comparison, the year-to-year changes, so you can analyze that stuff. Other organizations that you're reporting to might analyze that stuff. But all that's more the official side. And then you have public reporting, which would be social media, maybe your organization's individual website or publications and press releases. can always share your results, resources, and outreach and photos on your own website. If you go to websites of any big nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity, For Oceans, World Wildlife Fund, you'll see all all the stories, and then also the quantitative information. All of that's also part of the putting your name out there. Social media, also Facebook, Instagram, X. All of that can help people find you and what you do. And then publications, outside news sources might write an article about your organization or you, or an event that you're having, or interviews with people at your site. All that. Can also put out your own newsletter if you like. I feel like that's a pretty common thing that VISTA seemed to add. During my project year, we had 2 or 3 people who said they'd started a newsletter at their project site. That's always a good way to keep in touch with people, to make sure they remember you're there, and to give them updates, let them know what you're doing, and the impact you're having. With interactions with news stations, though, it can depend on where you're serving. I was serving at a university. The university had a communications and press department. So we did have one article where they interviewed everybody at my office individually and wrote the article from there. But we also had events where we were instructed not to say anything to the press because the communications and press department was in charge of all of that. So if you are working in a place that might have somebody who's specifically in charge of that kind of thing, that's not you, just make sure that you are not going outside of what you're supposed to be doing for your service. You shouldn't really be working with press releases during your service year as a VISTA. But all of this also, again, can apply to any jobs you have in the future. So found it important to mention. This might be something that you do some other time. So these are some examples of quantitative data reports. One of them from AmeriCorps, which puts out national reports, both on AmeriCorps as a whole, and then for each individual state. Here we have the National Service in Maryland report, 500 local service sites, 4,800 AmeriCorps senior and AmeriCorps members, $26.8 million raised through AmeriCorps and local funding, and 121.2 million AmeriCorps scholarships earned since 1994. All of that in this graphic, and then even more in the written report underneath it. And then another example from the Ohio Association of Food Banks, which is included because we also had a presentation about this sort of thing. I think partially taught by the Ohio Association of Food Banks, somebody from the Ohio Association of Food Banks. But their information was in the presentation, so it's also here now. 2023 recap, 63 VISTA members, 25 service sites, 364 volunteers recruited, 282,000 meals served, 59,000 snacks served, and 48,000 pounds of produce distributed. Yeah, these are to give you some visual examples of how you can report quantitative data and also examples of the data being reported by intermediary sites, and also AmeriCorps itself. Qualitative examples also from AmeriCorps and the Ohio Association of Food Banks. Here there are photos, personal stories from Solidarity Farms in Ohio, Washington Morgan Community Action Program in Washington County, Ohio, giving their individual testimonials and also including some quantitative data as well. I've included the newsroom picture just to highlight all of the different areas where AmeriCorps will report all of this, and the different ways that they do it. So there's the news, where AmeriCorps puts out its own news articles, the blog, where AmeriCorps puts out its blog posts. One of those is usually more official, and the one might highlight more individual stories from individual service sites. Not the stories portion on the AmeriCorps website, which is where sites or individual members can go and submit their story to be posted on the story site, and where you can read the stories about individual members, individual projects, individual sites throughout the country who wanted to give like a little shout out. It can also be people served by VISTA or really impacted by their service. So you can see a lot of little cute messages from people saying, hey, this VISTA helped out at our event. They did this and we were super impressed and we just really wanted to thank them. And yeah, so that's even less official, but still a nice thing. And then in the news, separate from AmeriCorps news, is where AmeriCorps stuff is reported in other news publications, and then AmeriCorps puts it on their website as well. So, yeah, they're putting a whole bunch of stuff all over the place. There's another site where they put all of their official reports and compiled studies that is separate from the newsroom section too. It is let's see, where is it? I had it open. Yeah, the evidence exchange on AmeriCorps website. That is where they are doing collecting and synthesizing data from a specific area, a specific state, data from a specific aspect of VISTA service. You might have received surveys from AmeriCorps asking you to discuss how do you feel at your service site. I know I got some asking about mental health of VISTA members during their service year. So they do reports on all sorts of stuff. Also, hold one open because I was going to read it. Yeah, Another one called Empowering Change in National Service, Exploring Personal Growth, Initiative, and Self-Confidence in AmeriCorps Members. So, yeah, that's just to highlight all of the data AmeriCorps is collecting from all of these different places and how they use some of it. This is another cool thing that I found. Apple Podcasts did a podcast episode with people from AmeriCorps, people from Mathematica, which is the I guess the company that helps them organize all their data and don't want to keep saying synthesize and organize, but synthesizes it so they can find all of these things through the data they have, because it takes a lot when you have so much to really get any useful information out of it. Not a lot, but there's a lot of data, there's a lot of things that you can get from that data, and it takes a lot of work to get all of the things that you can get out of that data. But yeah, and also somebody who is an AmeriCorps grantee, and they talked about how AmeriCorps is using data to support communities through national service and volunteerism. They talked about the history of AmeriCorps' data collecting, how they've changed their methods, how they've changed how they analyze it, how they report it to the public. Yeah, it's only about an hour long. But if you're interested in learning more about how AmeriCorps specifically is using this information, yeah, this would be a good thing to listen to on the Evidence Apple Podcasts episode 126. That link also, real quick, that link should work if you click on it. I added hyperlinks to all of this stuff in the actual presentation. So when we send out the presentation, you should just be able to get it through there. Hopefully. Okay, key takeaways. Having data always helps. It helps you, it helps your host site, it helps most network, and it helps AmeriCorps. This data is used in a lot of different ways. There are multiple types of data to collect. You want to make sure you have both. Share this data every way you can. Last question. Unless anybody else has any questions from this part of the presentation, you can also ask your own questions, but we are interested in one thing you learned from this presentation.
I guess for me, one thing I learned is finding other avenues that qualify as gaining information. So my organization does a lot of surveys, and sometimes we'll even use things like Eventbrite, so people can sign up. But we also, this summer, when we did our summer programming, we're very big about taking pictures. And in my mind, I wouldn't necessarily qualify pictures as data as much as the traditional written stuff. So it's nice to know that can also count.
Yes, we had our state report from my service site was returned to us and deemed not enough because we didn't include enough photos when we told the state office what we were doing with the money we got. They came back and said, you need to redo this because there weren't enough photos. So photos are equally important as all the rest of this stuff.
We have some things written in the chat here. So we've got more ways to collect quantifiable data and how data is used and how it helps to shape national AmeriCorps narratives. All right. Well, I think we can stop the recording here.
You're not going to include the last slide?
Oh, sorry. I didn't know there's one more slide. Oops. I'll take that. Let you take that.
It just says happy fall, and I included a drawing of by Piper Thibodeau. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's a pumpkin python.
Very sweet.
And I included a whale because I like whales.